According to its editors, the Muslim Vibe is a media platform established to inspire, inform, and empower Western Muslims to reclaim the narrative of Islam by promoting true Islamic values and principles. Is this the case, or is there something more sinister going on? Stay tuned to find out on another investigation by Sunnah Defense. The Muslim Vibe was founded in 2014 by Salim Qassam and Hasib Razvi. A deeper look at TMV reveals its hidden 12er Syiah pro-Khomeiniist agenda and links with major 12er Syiah scholars who carry out taqiyya to encourage Sunni Shia unity. Quite a strong claim, we know, but stay with us and by the end of this video, you can decide for yourselves. During our investigation, one of the main members of TMV was involved in an incident which resulted in TMV deleting evidence, such as articles and tweets, that would have exposed their links further. Fortunately, we were able to successfully archive all critical evidence prior to its deletion. Taking a closer look at Salim Qassam, we find that according to his LinkedIn profile, that he was a former employee of Adobe TV, a major Shia platform which promotes a pro-Khomeiniist agenda. As we will find, this link to Adobe TV is a recurring theme with employees at TMV. Adobe TV is a project overseen by popular 12er Shia scholar Mahdi al-Mudarisi, whose verbal abuse of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and Sunni polemicists is publicly available on his Twitter via his lectures on YouTube, all whilst calling for unity under the guise of taqiyya, as we at Sunni Defense have previously exposed. Here's a taste of his anti-Sunni rhetoric.
هد الناس جميعا بعد الحسين إلا ثلاثة. After Imam al-Hussein, everyone left the religion of Allah. Everyone became an apostate except for three people. Number one was a really shrewd, cunning kind of person. Right? He was a bully, but he acted like someone who was reasonable. Number two was the true bully, dripping with misogyny. We all know that. Hated women to the core. Number two was the one who was dispatched to do number one's dirty work.
When they kicked her in her stomach, the cursed man.
Which is why I often say to people that those who think Muawiyah did all the vile, grotesque, disgusting things in order to rule, they underestimate Muawiyah. Muawiyah wasn't so much interested in the treasures and the money and the pleasure and the women and the men and the men and the men and God knows what else. He was a hypocrite. He was without a doubt a disbeliever. According to the treaty signed between Imam al-Hassan and that vile creature Muawiyah, Imam al-Hussein was supposed to succeed. Muawiyah, after he went to hell. Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah, may Allah curse him for all eternity. The Imam said to him, Ya Sa'd, mimma buka'uk? Why do you cry like this? He said to the Imam the most obvious thing. I am from the accursed tree, from the family of Bani Umayyah. And just remember the fact that Banu al-Abbas were such savage monsters. Al-Bukhari was a master deceiver. Al-Bukhari was the ultimate censorship machine.
In this tweet, Mudarrisi uses a light bulb, a reference to a common slur used by 12er Shias. Bulb, Bar, Umar, Lat, Bishmar. May Umar be cursed endlessly. These are just a few of his inflammatory statements. Salim Qassam has also hosted another inflammatory speaker on his podcast, known as The Rogue Muslim. Like Mudarrisi, the Rogue Muslim doesn't shy away from controversial comments. In Qassam's article, he praises popular Shia scholar Azhar Nasser, who has previously been exposed at Sunni Defense for his taqiyya mongering, as well as multiple cases of plagiarism.
Unfortunately, brothers and sisters, we live in a world today where Muslims are constantly at each other's throats. Muslims are fighting with one another and disputing with one another and bickering amongst each other.
The son of Khattab hit her in her stomach until she miscarried Muhsin.
Fatima al-Zahra martyred. By who? by those who call themselves the companions.
First and the second Khalifa, the strategy was to systematically destroy the Sunnah of the Prophet.
It's possible for someone to speak about religion but live an irreligious life. And Muawiyah, for example, was a master of this. Munafiqeen are essentially kuffar in disguise. We're not talking about a handful of people. And these munafiqeen, they essentially took over after the death of the Prophet. This ummah divided and destroyed by those who claimed to be the closest to the Prophet, who had sweet tongues, but whose hearts were filled with hypocrisy.
There are three elements, there are three ingredients of effective communication.
Now, there are three ingredients, there are three important aspects of effective communication.
Some of you, it'll save your marriage.
And this is advice that will help a lot of married couples.
She cooked dinner for you.
She prepares dinner for you.
And you're about to start eating, and you notice it's a little less salt than you're used to.
And you start eating. But then you notice that the food needs salt. It's very bland.
Beneficent. Have you ever used beneficent in a conversation with anybody before?
Have you ever used the word beneficent in a conversation?
Azhar Nasser has even been featured on the TMV podcast, and his wife Layla is listed as an author on TMV. Qassam's writings seem to be reflective of his associates. For instance, in one article from 2015, he lists ISIS and sectarianism as two major issues to look out for. This what he calls Wahhabi rhetoric, is widespread in most of his works, such as his article in The Independent from 2019, where he linked the Umayyad Caliphate to the terrorist group ISIS. According to Qassam, there is the Islam of the Umayyad dynasty and their modern ideological descendants in Wahhabism and ISIS, which is a violent perversion of a harmonious faith. Such rhetoric is also prevalent in his tweets. This narrative of linking historical Sunni figures to modern forms of terrorism is common on the Husseiniya pulpit.
ISIS is nothing new. It is just the world of Ahl Sunnah at its most radical and most complete.
You tell me the root of terrorism is Ibn Taymiyyah? No, not Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah? Not even Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah. Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab? Not even Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. The root of terrorism is the terrorists on the first day that Rasulullah died.
Now moving on to the TMV co-founder Hasib Razvi, who has also worked with Saddam Qassam at Ahl Bayt TV, according to his LinkedIn profile. Although his older Twitter account was deleted shortly after joining TMV, we were able to recover most of his mentions and tweets, which further reveals the close links that Razvi, and more importantly, TMV, hold with Mudarrisi. For instance, here Mudarrisi wishes Razvi, hashtagged as Hasib Brizo, a happy birthday. On another occasion, he tells Razvi to put a coin in the jar. Based upon research we conducted, Mudarrisi, Qassam, Razvi, and Nuri Sardar, who we will meet soon, all seem to have close ties. Here, Nuri Sardar replies to Mudarrisi suggesting to Razvi that they add Mudarrisi to the Banter Boys group. Hasib Razvi also had a Twitter encounter with Yasser al-Habib's student and head of Purified Truth YouTube channel, Hassan al-Qadri, known for his provocative language towards the wives and companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. In the past, Hassan al-Qadri has called for the enslavement of Salafis and posted pictures of Shia militias with decapitated heads. During Razvi's encounter with Qadri, a companion of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was cursed. What's interesting to note is that this tweet was liked by none other than TMV co-founder Saddam Qassam. We were also able to obtain evidence of Razvi being a Shirazi Shia. In this now deleted post from 2013, Razvi praises Iranian Ayatollah Shirazi, who is used as a scapegoat by Shias for the tradition of cursing the companions, and is also the religious reference for Shia figures known to be openly insulting and provocative towards the revered Sunni figures, such as hate preacher Yasser al-Habib. However, Razvi does take consideration to hide his tracks by condemning Yasser al-Habib and his associates in an article from 2016, equating him to a Wahhabi and Jem Chowdhury. The last significant member is Nuri Sardar, who describes himself in the following video as the main producer of video content for TMV.
My role entails producing, filming, and editing all of the video content that you see on the Muslim Vibe.
According to his tweets, he is a Shia convert, Sardar, previously subscribed to the similarly tomb-venerating group known as the Barelvis. As you have likely already guessed, just like Qassam and Razvi, Sardar also worked at Ahlul Bayt TV at the same time as them and was closely tied to Mudarrisi. Another coincidence? We'll leave that for you to decide. Recently, Sardar has been at the forefront of the campaigns to push Sunni Shia unity culture, a trademark of pro-Khomeiniist revolutionary outlets. However, this recently backfired after some of his old tweets resurfaced in May 2020, even being highlighted by respected British Sunni academic Dili Hussain to expose Sardar's hypocrisy and double standards. Dili Hussain posted the following on both his Twitter and Facebook social media pages. Makes it difficult to work on Sunni Shia unity while cursing one of the most beloved companions and father-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, in reference to Sardar's tweet cursing Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu an. Founder of the organization documenting oppression against Muslims, Zahid Akhtar also tweeted about TMV Sardar's hypocrisy and was promptly blocked by the latter. Sardar has also written poetry cursing the companions, poetry which is still available via his website. Further links have also been found between Ahlul Bayt TV and TMV, as they often interview the same guests. Must be another coincidence, right? As shown here, the face that they paint themselves with, and TMV, is very sketchy. Not only are they linked to the major 12 Shia scholars who cursed the companions, but they have also done the same themselves in the past. With all this, it should come as no surprise that TMV has clear links to pro-Khomeiniist figures and organizations as they try to further the Iranian Khomeiniist agenda known as Wilayatul Faqih. Of course, TMV's get out clause would be that they have Sunnis working for them and appearing on their platform too. However, this is the equivalent of Fox News claiming that they employ Muslims. TMV, like Fox News, has their own agenda that they try to further regardless of who they employ. So what is Wilayatul Faqih? Wilayatul Faqih, or guardianship of the Islamic jurist, is the theory of 12er Shiaism, which holds that Islam gives a faqih, Islamic jurist, custodianship over people on behalf of the 12th Imam, who Shias believe is on a sabbatical from his job due to the occultation. It is part of the constitution of Iran today that the authority, or the wilaya, is given to the supreme leader. Today, this is Ayatollah Khamenei, the man in recent times responsible for sending the Iranian military to aid the tyrant Bashar al-Assad in quelling the Syrian revolution and funding many of the sectarian terrorist Shia militias all over the Middle East. This is part of the Iranian constitution, which is to export the revolution and expand the influence of Wilayat al-Faqih, or 12er Shiaism. This is also done via Khomeiniist propaganda media platforms such as Press TV and Islamic Pulse by taking advantage of the plight of the Palestinians and calling for Sunni Shia unity whilst attacking conservative Sunniism and providing a propaganda machine for Shia tyrants and militias to further the Wilayat al-Faqih cause. This was all explained in our documentary, Iranian Shiaism Exposed. Interestingly, at the Letter for You seminar in Qom, Iran, the Vatican of 12er Shiism, scholars and students of the Shia Seminary of Qom came together to evaluate the responses and the efforts made after an open letter by Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei written to the youth of the Western countries advising how they could aid Wilayat al-Faqih. Khomeiniist propagandist Muzaffar Haidar openly explains how the Muslim vibe is part of the Wilayat al-Faqih agenda in furthering the neo-Safawi Khomeiniist cause.
To the youth in Europe and North America is an online open letter written on the 21st of January 2015 by our Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Now, the purpose of this presentation is to analyze the effects and the reception of this letter, to have a look at the effects that this letter has had, and to look at how we received it. We want to look at it as if it's two sides of one coin. We want to look at the effects that we have had as the supporters of Wilayat al-Faqih. We also want to have a bit of a focus here on the mainstream media. We want to point out that this issue of the letter cannot be separated from the mainstream media. Everything is interrelated. Also, we want to be having a focus here on the Western media organizations, simply because the target audience of the letter was the youth of the West. So first we're going to have a look at the organizations which represent our views, inshallah. The organizations which have been spreading the views of Wilayat al-Faqih. So here we have some statistics. We can see the MuslimTV.net, AIM Islamic Mission, ShiaTV.net, Mahdi Global Media, Islamic Pulse, IslamicIdeology.net, Pure Stream, themuslimvibe.com, and Khamenei.r.
One element of the Khomeiniist agenda is promoting Shiism under the guise of taqiyya by calling for Sunni Shia unity. Iranian Supreme Leader Khamenei regularly promotes the message of unity, yet 12 Shia theology and statements of Khomeiniist scholars, as well as his political actions, are in contrast to this message. Khomeini himself advised taqiyya al-mudaratiyya, deception by integration, which he described in Al-Rasil, Volume 2, page 147. It is the act of making those who differ with us, Ahl Sunnah, love us, and lure them by friendliness in a situation where there is no fear or harm of damage to the Shia, unlike the taqiyya of fear.
صحبت دیگه‌ای هم با برادران و خواهران شیعه دارم، پیروان مکتب اهل بیت. امامان معصوم ما توصیه فراوان کردند که تلاش کنید به اینها نزدیک بشید، نگرانی هاشون رو رفع کنید، در نمازهاشون شرکت کنید. امامان معصوم ما جملات بسیار مهمی در باب تقیه دارن. می‌فرماید امام صادق که التقیه دینی و دین آبایی، تقیه دین من و روش آبا و گذشتگان من است و لا دین لمن لا تقیه له، کسی که تقیه نکند دین ندارد. مراد از تقیه صرفاً تقیه خوفی و ناشی از ترس نیست، بلکه تقیه شامل تقیه تحبیبی هم می شود.
ارتد الناس بعد رسول الله الا ثلاثه. اون ثلاثه شد به اندازه 500 میلیون تقیه این کار رو بشه. الا اگه از هم اول به سب و تق فلان اینها مشغول میشدیم اونجا زیاد میشد.
درسته هرچه توی اهل سنت نزنید تقیه بکنید. ما از زمان پیغمبر از زمان اهل تومانی تقیه میکردیم که حالا میکنیم، حرفی نداریم.
I mean, for example, sometimes you find our brothers from Ahlul Sunnah saying, you, the Shia, tell me your real beliefs. What's your real beliefs? Why don't you say your real beliefs in front of us? What are you doing taqiyya? You're lying? No, we're performing reconciliatory taqiyya, which means what? I could say my real beliefs, and I could come out openly with my real beliefs, but I appreciate there are certain figures that you have respect for who I may differ over. When I conceal all my opinions about those figures, it's not because I'm scared, it's because I'm trying to enter dialogue with you as another Muslim. I could come out openly on the minbar with all my opinions about figures in Islamic history, and I can be blunt about it. But reconciliatory taqiyya dictates that I conceal some of my beliefs so that I slowly enter a dialogue with another Muslim, so that I do not offend that Muslim. There are some things you don't come out with openly because the other school will see it as a shock. But not everything comes out, because reconciliatory taqiyya is the idea that we foster brotherhood between Muslims, not disunity.
Following this, like what has happened to the founders and Shia staff at TMV, Sunni figures are cursed by Khomeini scholars who also call for Sunni Shia unity to further the wilayat al-faqih agenda.
ایرانی ها رو عمر مسلمون کرده، ما حق نداریم به عمر توهین کنیم. یعنی این نه، من تا زندم میگم عمر حرومزاده بوده، تا زندم میگم هرچی سنی حرومزادن. عمر لعنت الله علیه.
بالقطع و الیقین گفتن مرگ بر عمر و مرگ بر ابابکر لعنت بر اون دو بالاتر از گفتن مرگ بر امریکا و اسرائیل. چرا؟ چون ریشه فتنه اونها بودن. اگر امروز اسرائیلی است، چون اونا نذاشتن امیرالمومنین حکومت کنن. نمیتوند مسئله لعن و براءت رو از شیعه بگیرد، چون اگر براءت و لعن رو از شیعه گرفتی یعنی دینش رو ازش گرفتی.
اللهم لعن عمر ثم ابا بکر و عمر ثم عثمان و عمر ثم عمر اللهم لعن عمر.
طرف مقابل مقدس ترین چهره هستند، لعن و براءت از اون شخصیت های قدسی مدرسه تسنن اساس دین تشیع است.
This rhetoric is also used by TMV, where they regularly use a slur to criticize those against Iran, their proxy militias, and tyrannical allies like Bashar al-Assad, under the guise of opposing extremism. Shortly after TMV founding Nuri Sardar was called out for his anti-Sunni rhetoric, TMV published this article entitled A Message to TMV's Lovers and Haters, where they attempt to save face by mentioning that they have opened their platforms to Sunni organizations such as Cage, MCB, Five Pillars, IHRC, MPAC UK, and Yaqeen Institute, likely in a bid to give itself credibility among the Sunni community. TMV also uses this tactic on its YouTube channel, where it hosts Sunni figures who are known to give general heart-softening reminders, such as Mufti Menk, Omar Suleiman, and Suhaib Webb, who likely don't realize that they're being used as tools to further a Khomeiniist agenda. The aforementioned article also quotes, "The leader of the Islamic Revolution recurrently put emphasis on the significance of established unity amongst Muslims, making it clear that any form of insult projected towards Sunni scholars would prevent the rational and documented foundations of belief and the imamate from being heard." However, this again contradicts the actions of TMV. In a spoken word video, "This is not my Islam," clips of popular Sunni scholar Dr. Muhammad al-Arifi's speeches against the Assadist regime are played over a Shia chanting poetry, painting al-Arifi as an ignorant hate preacher for ISIS.
See, too many layman preachers are teaching our angry kids all about how to hate and divide rather than love and unite. They come with a message written in blood.
ولسكبنا أرواحنا فداء لأرواح إخواننا فنهم أهل لنا وهم أحبتنا ولا يرضى مسلم أبدا أن يرى امرأة عفيفة نشأت على القرآن والحجاب يتأبطها فاجر تحت إبطه فيسوقها إلى مخدعه.
Simply put, if someone is critical of the Iranian or Assad regime, TMV paints them as a villain, yet they demonstrate no objectivity by condemning Bashar al-Assad or the crimes of the Iranian regime. There is no mention of the plight of the Sunni Ahwazis in Iran or the oppression and discrimination of the Iranian regime towards the Sunni community. There is no condemnation of sectarian Shia militias. Rather, we find the opposite, with articles praising the likes of warmonger Qasim al-Suleimani, a man responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Sunnis. One particular article related to Suleimani, Iran, unconscious bias or deliberate misinformation, raised some eyebrows after a deeper look was taken at the author, Zahra Leda. Website author Zahra Leda worked for the American-Iranian Council, a U.S. think tank which attempts to promote U.S.-Iran relations. Further evidence demonstrating TMV's objective to furthering the Khomeiniist Wilayatul Faqih agenda. TMV has also published multiple articles with anti-Umayyad propaganda, as well as pushing the erroneous theory that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was murdered by his two wives, Aisha and Hafsa, a common accusation made by 12 Shias. It must be noted, regardless of whether we are assessing Shirazi or non-Shirazi Shia platforms, the end goal is one and the same: to acquire political, social, and economic control as means to spread Shiism and have a stronger influence in the Muslim world. When it comes to theology, they are united on takfir of the Sahaba, as it is in fact part of the Shia tradition. Many of the fatwas issued by non-Shirazi scholars which prohibit ritualized curse of the Sahaba are a new modern phenomenon and essentially stem out of the post-1979 Iranian revolutionary context. In summary, based upon evidence presented, TMV clearly promotes a pro-Khomeiniist agenda, as admitted by Muzaffar Haidar from Khomeiniist propaganda platform Islam Pulse. Its founders and employees are linked to major inflammatory Shia clerics. Its writers are linked to pro-Iranian think tanks. It openly defames Sunni scholars who speak out against the Iranian regime. It hosts popular Sunni figures to give itself credibility amongst Sunni audiences. Its founders and employees have and continue to attack revered Sunni figures. It attempts to promote Sunni Shia unity to further the Iranian constitution Wilayat al-Faqih agenda. It fails to condemn attacks on Sunnis in Iraq, Syria, and Iran, and even describes Qasim al-Suleimani as a martyr, whilst being very vocal about the Shia genocide by groups which now have been mostly disintegrated. Or maybe this is all just a big coincidence. We will let you, the viewers, decide. Do let us know in the comment section below. Until next time, Assalamualaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
On the 30th of December, we released a documentary titled The Hidden Agenda of the Muslim Vibe, whereby we made multiple claims about the platform, such as the facts that they were founded by and employ 12 Shias. The founder and multiple members of TMV used to be employed by Mehdi al-Mudarrisi at Ahlul Bayt TV. Mehdi al-Mudarrisi is known for his abuse of the Sahaba, all available via his YouTube lectures. The Muslim Vibe hosts Shia scholars who verbally abuse and make takfir of the Sahaba, who are revered by more than 1 billion Muslims. It employs writers linked with pro-Iranian think tanks. It releases articles in praise of Iranian regime warmonger Qasem Soleimani. It openly defames Sunni scholars who speak out against the Assad and Iranian regimes. Various members of TMV have publicly cursed the Sahaba via their social media accounts and via poetry, all whilst publishing articles about Sunni-Shia unity, which of course is a common strategy employed by Shia scholars. Unsurprisingly, TMV did not respond to the points we made in our documentary. What they did do, however, was file a defamation case via YouTube, which resulted in our video being blocked in the UK. We are currently in the process of appealing. For those in the UK who would like to watch the documentary, you can use a VPN. TMV, what was it about the documentary that made you react in this way? Why did you not respond to the points in our documentary? We would like to hear from you. We are even willing to host you on our platform so that you can explain how we defamed you and how these points were wrong and that they are all a big coincidence. We'd also like to offer you the opportunity to condemn and distance yourself from Mehdi al-Mudarrisi and Ahlul Bayt TV. Condemn the Shia scholars that you have hosted who abused the Sahaba, publicly retract calling Qasem Soleimani a martyr, and apologize to Sheikh Muhammad al-Arifi for implying that he has links to a terrorist organization, and explain that Muzaffar Haider of Islamic Pulse was lying at the Letter for You seminary in Qom, Iran, when he claimed that TMV further the Wilayat al-Faqih agenda. TMV, the ball is in your court. Or are you going to continue trying to silence those who raise questions about your organization? Assalamualaikum.